And welcome back to Redefine Parenting. I'm your host, Vinu Keller, and today we have a special episode because I have an amazing guest that I can't wait to introduce. Welcome to Spanglish World Network and her network on Zingo TV, channels 250 and 251. Please remember to download both Zingo TV app on respective app stores and iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. The app is free. Zingo TV is also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire Sticks, Roku Sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 forward. So tonight is a special episode because I have the honor of having the one and only John Gray, who is the author of the most well-known and trusted relationship book of all time, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And I had the privilege of being on a call with you before, John, and we had talked about so much of your book, and I realized you had this parenting book that was also huge in the 90s. And when I was reading it, I was like, I am so aligned with this man's thinking. I need to get him on the show because it's exactly what redefining parenting is. And it's funny that you wrote this so long ago because it really plays a role in our life now. So, I'm a mom of 6 kids from all the way from 28, 24, my 18, 14, and 10-year-old twins, and a granddaughter who's 5. And some of the things that I did in the past with my adult children when I was a single mom definitely shamed. I guilted them. I gave them pain. I blamed them. It took down their self-worth and self-esteem. So when I created the Redefine Parenting, it was really about teaching parents that there is another way to parent your child without bringing all that punishment. And when I read that in your book, I was like, oh my gosh, like I am fully in sync with this guy. This is amazing. So I just want to start off in welcoming you, first of all, to our show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I was just curious. So, what made you write this book and these thoughts that are so unorthodox back then?
Back then, it was quite a breakthrough. Well, I'm a therapist, and part of everything I learned about men are from Mars, women from Venus was counseling people. So, one aspect of counseling is helping women and men understand how they misinterpret each other all the time, and we project what we think they're feeling when they're not really feeling that. Like men would go to their cave, women would think he's ignoring me. And so in affirmation, they learn once they understand men, they go, even when he ignores me, he still loves me. Because when a woman is ignoring a man, usually it's because she's mad at him. So if he's ignoring her, she assumes that he's mad at her. And then she gets mad back and he ignores her more because he just needs his space.
Mm.
I've had to take the whole Mars Venus ideas, and I'll do this with the parenting book as we talk, back into hormones. Okay, there's so much confusion about sex now that we how to define a woman. What is a man? Well, however you want to look at biologically, there's a truth here, and the biology is that, simply put, I focus on one aspect of our biological differences is how we cope with stress. And when you're stressed, if you're a woman, you need more estrogen to lower your stress. And if you're a man, you need more testosterone to lower your stress. Every stressed man has low testosterone, and if he's angry or procrastinating, his estrogen is too high. But for a woman, if she's angry and upset, her basically she's not getting the support she needs to keep her estrogen up. Actually, getting angry for her when she's expressing that anger, it will give her a bump of estrogen, which will make her feel good, but then it goes right back down because she
Mm.
doesn't understand how she's not interpreting reality correctly. So it's about, women need 10 times more estrogen to manage stress. Men need 10 times more testosterone to manage stress. So that's adults. Boys at 13, they get 10 times more testosterone. That's when they really see the gender differences between boys and girls. Today, as people are trying to figure out what sex your child is, a boy can't even know what sex he is until his puberty. His testosterone goes up 10 times. Prior to that, as far as hormones go, his estrogen levels are like a little girl's. He still has a male brain. For the first 2 years of life for a boy, his testosterone levels will be of a grown man. And then they go back down to like a little girl. He'll still have a little bit more testosterone, but he has more estrogen like a little girl. Then at puberty, he needs to now not produce his body just doesn't make as much estrogen as he did before. For well-being, he needs to feel safe. It's the most important thing for boys and girls to feel safe from the age from birth to about puberty. Then for the boy to produce testosterone, he needs to be challenged. He needs a little danger. He needs to be around men. He needs to learn what masculinity is about by being with men. For girls, need to be around girls and to support estrogen. They always needed estrogen. They just continue needing more estrogen as they go through puberty. And these are biological changes. So if a boy doesn't get the kind of support he needs to pump up his estrogen at puberty, then he will not develop correctly. And so punishment, for example, although we both are on the same page, you ask why I write a book, How to Manage Your Children, how to create confident, cooperative children, motivated without having to punish them. Now, you can set limits, but this whole idea of shaming your child, blaming your child, inflicting pain on your child, it doesn't work. And it doesn't work today more than ever because people are more sensitive and we have more consciousness, we have more awareness. We have it as adults, so our children have it. So we need different parenting techniques. And I remember back in the 80s doing a documentary, early 90s, doing a documentary on how to raise your children without having to punish them. Now I still set limits, and as teenagers, you lose rights. There's control here. Your children can't just be spoiled and get everything they want. You have to manage them. But the old-fashioned ways of blame and shame and control and punishment and fear, usually that doesn't work except to lower your children's self-esteem. So then they become obedient to you from low self-esteem rather than cooperative with you. That's the key.
Right.
So a lot of this came about by doing counseling, doing therapy. So one thing I do as Mars Venus is giving people knowledge, teaching them about men and women. But the other part is people have traumas from their childhood, and learning what people's traumas from their childhood are. I realized, oh, well, they wouldn't have had these traumas if they gotten different messages. So I was able to find those messages, and I can summarize real shortly and then how to do this. But the 5 messages that I think are really important: it's okay to be different. As soon as you start comparing your kids with other kids, you're putting a stain on their self-esteem. And that's what grading does. I don't think children should ever be graded before puberty. You don't have enough identity developed to be able to say, oh, if I did bad, I'm bad. Parents go overboard to say, well, you did something bad. That doesn't mean you're bad. But they actually don't have the brain development to know the difference between I did something bad and I'm bad. Even today, an adult, usually the ability is potentially there around 28 years old when your prefrontal cortex is fully developed. And then if you're teaching a class and everybody gets out and walks out, you don't feel like you're bad. They must have to go to the bathroom. Okay. It's because you talk too long. So that's self-esteem. But, to be able to know I didn't win everybody's approval doesn't mean I'm bad. It means they don't like me. That's their problem. It's not mine. You can't please everybody. So the idea where that low self-esteem comes from is we're being compared all the time to others. And that can be positively compared. You're so much better than others. That gives an implied message that if you're not good at other things, then you get less love. So for the genius kids, they often have all kinds of insecurities doing anything different from their genius. Because they can't bear to be not good at something. So they choose just to stay very narrow in their focus. And then you get children that don't do well. They have low self-esteem because they're only not doing well because they're being compared to somebody who can learn something faster and different.
Correct.
So there are different styles for children. One is fast learners on a particular topic. Others are going to be moderate learners. So they're making progress. And those usually have the best self-esteem later on, is because they're constantly getting messages. You're doing a good job. We're getting there. We're getting there. The ones that go really fast, they often feel, oh, well, I can do this really good, but not other things. So I'm going to not feel confident to try other things and develop more of myself. And then you've got children, I mentioned this in the book, who are leapers. They leap. They sit back. Like Einstein didn't talk, I think, for 7 years. He just couldn't talk. And then suddenly he can talk in full sentences. And I've actually had children in some of my classes where I was doing healing on their brain. These are more children who have autistic spectrum. And with the right supplements and the right help, they would go from 0 to full sentences, and like 25 sentences in a weekend when they didn't speak at all, and complete sentences. So the connections aren't always there. So that's more of the exception over there. But I'm just pointing out that kids, they sometimes just need a little link up. And these are your leapers. They have to watch it for a while. They have to see other people do it. So this is a child who can't clean up their room. So you got a child that can't clean up their room. The other child can clean up their room. Why can't you clean up your room? And so we get really, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Instead of
Right.
realizing they can't clean up the room. Get it? They need you to show them how to do it again and again and do it with them. So let's clean up the room together until they can learn to do it. So they can't really get it until a certain point where they're getting help. Then they take a big leap. Now, I remember my daughter's algebra teacher, I think around puberty is where algebra is really important for a male brain, and social studies is really important for a girl brain, language skills, is that those parts of the brain need to develop. And the math teacher was telling me, and then there's science to back this up, but he says, I can take some children and I can work with them and work with them and work with them, and they're just not going to get algebra. And then one day, boom, they've got it. So that's due to another aspect of actually the brain is developing the capacity for abstract thinking, which is algebra is very important for that. And for girls, it's to be able to have the ability to see that there's never just one point of view, but there's many points of view. And that's what social studies should allow you to look at. I remember when, I think it was in high school or something, the teacher would have us look at 3 different newspapers and look at a subject and see how different points of view, that's
Right.
true point of view, this is a true point of view, and this is a true point of view. So having different perspectives instead of being in a non-abstract brain, which is everything is a fact. It's like every time you go to the street, you need to hold my hand. But actually, as you get older, sometimes you don't need to hold my hand. That's abstract thinking, which is something is true in this situation, but not true in that situation. And that's
Right.
the way our brain is developed. Now, some people never get out of that because they never got education, or the males never learned algebra. That's very important to step out of the concrete thinking into abstract thinking. So those are a few topics, but the main thing is that all comes under the category of we compare children to other children as opposed to looking at their uniqueness and who they are. And now I'm going to have to take a step where people have gone too far with this, which is if your boy has some feminine personalities, it doesn't mean he's a girl. If he has feminine qualities, generally speaking, what that means, he needs more help to develop his masculine qualities. So what you saw in traditional cultures, there was always initiations for boys into masculinity around puberty. And when they seem really horrible. We don't want to do that to our children, too rough. Like one initiation was one tribe in America, Indian tribe, they would take branches and they stick wood through their breasts and then tie a rope to the breasts.
Oh,
And then in front of the whole village, these little villages, they pull him up into the air by his breast. And it takes about a few minutes, but then at that point, massive amounts of endorphins get produced, and then he has a vision. Others have done vision quests where they have the boy go away from the mother. He has to fast and be alone for days, and that allows him to find his mission and purpose in life. It's
right.
through experiencing deprivation as opposed to softness. So there, again, we look at in hormonal terms, we look at boys need more estrogen stimulation up to about 12 years old. Then they need testosterone stimulation. Now, that whole story about the needles going into the branches going into the breast, I was teaching a class one time, and a guy came up and said they did that to me, and he showed us the scars on his breast. Now, the way I look at that, and I'll share my own experience with an initiation into manhood, is one time I was traveling and it's freezing, and I was in this hotel, and there was no heat, and it was winter, but I needed a place to stay, so I got this little tiny room, which had wet sheets. Okay, they didn't even have hot, dry sheets. So the wet, you wash things, they don't always dry in the wintertime. So they were
Right.
wet, and it was freezing cold. And I remember getting into that bed and curling up inside and going, well, I'm just going to have to go to sleep. I'm going to have to endure it. Okay, and I endured it. And to this day, when anything ever really bothers me, really now, but I say for about good 20 years afterwards, if something bothered me, I go, hey, I did that. This is nothing.
Nothing. Right.
This is part of masculinity having to be challenged in order to find their self-esteem through overcoming challenges, being challenged, and at the same time having the safety net of love and appreciation and understanding. and not expecting them to do more than they can. You have to measure where a child can and to push them a little bit more. And that's when it comes to boys. When it comes to girls, what they need is to go over to their emotional side. You see, now they need way more estrogen. They're having their period. They need more estrogen. If they don't have more estrogen, then their stress levels will be high. And once they go high, she becomes more masculine. So this is what's happening to women today, is that the girls are becoming more independent, more masculine. And it's fine to have that to balance your femininity, but you need time to develop your femininity, which is being with women, being with girls, having mothers guiding them into things that produce estrogen. Estrogen is produced by doing routine activities with other women. Like in the old days, they would knit together. Okay. They would do knitting circles, and they cooking together and talking together. A big one, because they don't have these sort of activities that are low intensity. They're all looking at their iPhones, which kills estrogen. You can't produce estrogen when you're looking at an iPhone. You're only going to make testosterone.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
It's so
dopamine.
I want to, you've said so much, and I want to just kind of bring some thoughts into this. It's like with, one of the things that I love is that you discuss different types of kids and the way their brains work and why some kids are the leapers and some aren't. And what's interesting is that's why I created Redefine Parenting. It's not every child needs you to be the conscious parent. Not every child needs you to be the helicopter parent. We need to be the parent that child needs us to be. And it's allowing us to look at the things that you talked about, to see where is my child at, and to really embrace that and give them the support that they need, because that's the type of child they are.
Exactly. And often parents will say, these are my model children, and this is my problem child. And the problem child is only the problem child because they're a different temperament than that parent.
Correct.
So if your child has the same temperament as you, you instinctively give them and allow them and praise them for the things that relate to you. But the child who doesn't have the same temperament as you. So in that book, I went into more traditional temperaments of children. There's some children that, I forget the terms I used in that book because I've written other books since then, but basically to describe them is that some children, they like the shiny bits. They're bright. They're the cheerful. They're always wanting something new. They can't finish things. Okay. They just don't finish things. They have to have something to know who they are. They have to try drumming and it doesn't work out. And now I'm going to try this and I'm going to try that. I'm going to go there. They need a lot of stimulation of new and different. That's who they are. But another child needs stability. Okay. They need regular bedtimes. Very, very important. Routine.
Yes.
Routine. Some kids don't have regular bedtimes. They thrive. I thrive. I didn't have a regular bedtime, but I'm that red type. It's just like playful and fun and up and emotional, passionate, exciting, and then bored. Okay. Excited and then bored. We need stimulation, but not electronic stimulation. They would easily get trapped into addiction to new and different rather than just starting and trying something new. So that's part of who they are. They're exploring the world, finding what do I like? What do I not like? And they shouldn't be shamed for that. They were so excited about starting something and then they couldn't finish. Well, they need to start something else, as opposed to the parent who happens to be more the stable type, the routine type. It's like, you have to follow through, you have to finish, you have to get it done. These children, we'll call them the Reds, they don't finish stuff. It's hard for them to finish stuff. But if you join them, like they're cleaning up their room, if you participate with them, then they'll move into the yellow. The yellow is, sure and steady. They'll follow through, they'll finish it, they'll get it done. And so they're gradually developing another part of them, but they tend to start out dominant, just doing new and different. The others need regularity and routine.
Do you think it's also, though, because then you bring in the connection with it too, that they're not on their own having to finish it and do it, not doing it wrong. And then you're joining them as the parent and you're actually showing them and setting the standard of what it would look like. So they actually know, like, they don't know how to finish it. Like, what is clean room?
They don't know. They don't.
Exactly.
But the sure and steady type, I call them yellows. They're good. They're good for setting goals and following through and getting it done. They feel who they are. They feel a sense of who I do by what I can follow through and finish. They need security. They need stability. That's their whole thing. They tend to eat a lot. So you have to be careful with them because they can use food in order to veg out, overeat, so they have to have some discipline around that. But they'll look for food if they're not getting stability in their life, which means
Right.
parents have to provide a sense of stability. Otherwise, they'll act out and they'll overeat. So that's one. I talk about different types. So another one is action oriented child. We'll call him the red. You know, they need to be leaders. And how do they want to be out front? They want the most attention. They want to get the attention. So you have to give them responsibilities and then acknowledge them for what they did. Okay, now your job, so I'm thinking of a young child, mom's cooking dinner. Now your job is to do this and you're going to do that. They always need jobs to do so that you can then appreciate them for that. If they don't get jobs to do and things that they can do to be helpful or nurturing, if it's a little girl, how am I going to be nurturing? If they don't get that, then they get attention by being not nurturing or not helping others, but they create trouble. So these little troublemakers, they're just not getting enough attention and appreciation for what they can do. And it's not like just be nice to them, love them, you're wonderful. No, give them jobs to do so they're earning it. It's more of
Well,
a test.
they to me, that also brings in that self-worth, right? Like they're worth being a part of that opportunity, or they're worth being a part of making dinner. And worth is knowing, like I always tell people, like if I ask you how much is this cup, you'll give me a monetary value. But if I ask how much you're worth, it always goes to where do I belong? Where do I feel loved? And that I belong as part of this family to help clean, to help make dinner. And it really does, when we give our kids this opportunity to say, okay, do this next, it gives them an opportunity of feeling like they actually belong, like it gives
And,
them their worth.
right. And belonging is universal to all kids, a very important need that they have. Uh, and one of the ways you manage your children, another communication skill, is first the mistake often mothers make, fathers can make, but mostly mothers will make this mistake when your children is not cooperating with you. Okay, they're basically what you'll say to them is you're not listening. Okay, this is, in my opinion, the worst phrase ever. They hear you, they're just not, they're not wanting to cooperate. They're
Yes.
uncooperative that much because they find something else more interesting and more making them happy than you. It's kind of like I'm trying to train my dog to always come, but they get distracted. That's ADD. He doesn't see me. It's like, oh, but that's much more interesting than dad. So you talk to your child and you say you're not listening, it doesn't have any effect. It basically just shames them or upsets them. But I did hear you. I just don't want to do what you say. So
Right.
be clear about your message. So when they're at those times where you want to say you're not listening, instead, you make a clear statement. Let me think what that statement is. Oh, here it is. It's been a while since I've done an interview on that book, and my children have all grown up. This is the most powerful statement. Right now, I want you to cooperate. That's what you're wanting from them, not to listen. Why do you want them to listen? So they will cooperate. You give
Give
them the
them the
clear message.
directive.
It's and also when you say a negative to a child, it actually sometimes pushes them in towards the negative. You have to realize that if you say to a child, "You're not listening," it actually makes them listen less.
Right.
If you say, "I want you to cooperate," now, right now, that's a moment. Right now, I want you to cooperate, and you can look at them. Okay, right now, I want you to cooperate. We are a family, and we all take turns, or we all have our roles, or we are a family, and I'm the mom, and this is what I want you to do. So you bring it back to simple reality. We're a family. The kids are, you have lots of kids there, one gets a toy, but I don't want them to play. Well, I want to play too, and so you say, we are a family. I want you to cooperate. We are a family. We take turns. Now you're going to get 5 minutes, and now you're going to get 5 minutes. Are you going to get 1 minute? They're younger. You're going to get one. And they immediately shift into, oh, okay, we can cooperate, as
Right.
opposed to we can listen. What is listening? Doesn't mean anything to them.
So
So
there's like, even with that, so there's a few things I want to touch on. Number one, with that, you are telling them what you want, like you're role modeling. Like, we now need to step into the world of just tell people what you want. Don't manipulate them into making the answer, giving you a yes. Just tell them what you want. And when we tell our kids a directive, like, I want you to cooperate, you're stating what you want. And when they do it, you praise them. Like, I'm all about praise your
yes,
child
yes.
when they do what you ask them to do, because then they're getting the attention. They feel like they're in control of their behavior. and they're getting praised for it, so they'll do it more. You praise the behavior you want to see. I wanted to just go back a little bit, because back to the whole punishment thing, one of the things that I teach my clients, the parents, is the time should fit the crime. Because a lot of parents, and I know I am so guilty of this back in the day with my older boys, no matter what they did, I would take their phone away, right? The cell phones came out, they had cell phones, I'd take their phone away, or I would ground them. And it had nothing to do with the phone. I tell the parents, if you're going to take the phone away, tell me the why behind it. And the parents say, well, they're constantly on it, they're not getting their work done. Then take the phone away, because the phone is a distraction. So the time fits the crime. And then when they're done, give them back their phone. Don't make it a punishment. Make it something that they have to work towards, that they realize. And it also gives them that, wow, I earned this. It's that sense of ownership. It's that sense of, I did this and I deserve this.
Right. It's not a punishment. Now you have to earn your trust with me. If I'm going to let you have this phone, you have to earn your trust. And if
Right.
you violate that, I'm going to take it away, and now you can earn the trust back. So it's not really a punishment in that case. It's taking away. You have to earn trust. A lot of kids actually use this against their parents. This is adolescents. They'll say, "What, you don't trust me?" I said, "Of course not. That's why you take it. That's I'm the boss. I'm the parent. I'm taking care of you. When you basically don't depend on me, you leave. But right now, you're learning to earn my trust so that I can support you in going out into the world. This is part of normal life. Of course, you can earn my trust, and I appreciate that. You're working so good at this. I always throw in, no matter what I say, I always throw in some good positive acknowledgments and some
Absolutely.
praise. You just can't do enough of it. You can't love your kids too much in that context. But in the context of indulging their neediness, you can do that way too much. And so
Right.
there's we talk, this is all in the category of that first message, which is you don't have to be like others. You can be special. Okay. You don't compare this child to
Right.
this one. And we do
Well,
it all the time in our minds or whatever, rather than trusting that it's going to work out. This child will
right.
find their way with love. Now, you asked me in the beginning how I got into a book which doesn't focus on punishment to manage your children, cooperation. I grew up in a family of 7 kids, six boys, and then one little sister. And the four older brothers, to me, basically had a lot of challenges and problems. My dad is Texas. My mom would say, "Okay, you do that, I'm going to tell your dad." And we go up there, and dad would pull out the belt and whip you. And you'd be afraid of dad. You'd sometimes go right. But all these kids had problems. One almost went to jail. They put him in military school. The other one had low self-esteem, which when you try to push children down, they get the message something's wrong with me. So
Yes.
my mother convinced my dad. She says, this doesn't seem to be working. So why don't we try something different with Johnny? So I'm just a little kid. So I never got punished. I never got punished. So I understood how you can blossom. I'm a massively creative person, and I write really fast. I've written 28 books. I can sit down, and as in school, I wasn't a good writer. Okay. It wasn't like I'm gifted at that. But once I learned to write as an adult and they paid me to write, then I learned how to write. Okay. If somebody pays you a lot of money, you say, okay, I'll write that out. But anyway, I sit down and I notice why I'm so good at writing so fast. I don't have gigantic demands on perfection. I don't have to be perfect. I'm not
Mm,
afraid of being criticized. One and two is when I'm writing, I do edit myself. I write something and I read it over and over and over. I will do that, and I'll make quick corrections. It's okay to make corrections as opposed to spending too much time on something. I'll just say, get rid of it or correct it. I can move through it in a fluid way as opposed to trying to defend myself. When your children don't feel safe to share themselves with their parents, that's a big problem with punishment.
that is.
I can't tell you what I did wrong. If you can't tell somebody what you did wrong, then you can't develop the ability to pivot. Okay, I made a mistake. Let me learn from it. I made a mistake. Let me learn from it. So many people as adults, they get lost into feeling bad. I'm sorry. The guilt and the regrets, they don't go away because they haven't realized feeling regret and guilt or apology, that's just opening the door to then feel your desire to change and to be motivated. And you can't feel motivation unless you're loving yourself. You have to feel, okay, I feel bad. I forgive myself. Now, how do I want to change? You only end up letting go of the guilt when you say, what can I do to change? And you create a new strategy to be a better person, always coming back to being a better
Right.
person. But if you don't feel love, it's very hard to even come back with who you are, because who we are is lovable. And when you feel I am lovable, I still deserve to be loved. It was a phrase my wife noticed about me. Now she's passed. We were married 34 years. But one of the things she always said about me is, she said, John's an innocent. He's an innocent. He never means to do wrong. He's always trying to do better, but he's not always perfect. He makes mistakes. But it's like he always will learn from them and grow from them. And that's because I was not punished. I know that's the case. It's just that it was always safe for me to make mistakes because there was no punishment. There's no shame. There's no guilt. I don't know how my mother did it. I don't know how my dad did it, but they did it, and how I turned out. And the way I heard, now there's a side effect to this. If you're the only child who's not punished, that's a problem. Because when my brothers saw that I was not being punished,
And you're the
they took
favorite.
it out on me. And so my dad, then he would have me go up to the room. He'd pull out his belt and he whipped the chair. And I'm supposed to make a noise so that they wouldn't. But they figured it out right away. They listened at the door. That's the chair. That's not Johnny. So that had repercussions. So my brothers were always sort of punishing me because I didn't get punished. So they took it out on me. Again, life has all these little mysteries around us. You got to have the same, somewhat equal treatment to all the kids.
Yeah.
So once I became like really famous, I'm not going to tell, but it was my birthday and I had a private jet at the time. I don't have that lifestyle anymore, but so I flew to Texas to show off to all my brothers, my private jet, took them, their children, all the grandchildren, took them to another city, gave them all $1,000 to celebrate my birthday. Oh yeah, I should never have done that, but my mistake. You got all this money, you think make everybody happy. So
Right.
anyway, I did that. And my brothers were just so mad at me, showing off like that, whatever. And so we were at our beach house and we came back, we went to the beach house and they said, well, you have so much success because mother loved you more.
Yeah.
So I said, that's ridiculous. I had no awareness of this at all. We were all being treated the same in my awareness. Kids don't really see that much going on. And then I said, well, mom's still alive. Let's go ask her. And so we went to all 7 children. My mother's there. I said, Mom, these guys all think that I got more love than you. And my mother, she's very sweet. She goes, I've done everything I can to love each of you equally. Except Johnny, he makes you love him more.
Oh, geez. Oh, geez. So there's a,
So the wisdom of not showing off with one child, trying to, she did her best, but
right.
somehow she failed with me.
So there's, so one of the things that I teach the clients that I work with is how do you create that open, safe, and trusting space with your children? If you want to influence your child, you cannot be judging them. And one of the things that you talked about early on was about the whole grades thing. And, again, like everything you talk about, I'm like, oh, I resonate with that because it's what I teach my clients. And this is before I even knew you had a book out. I was like, how could this be? Like, I'm channeling his book and I didn't even know he had this book. And one of the things I teach my parents, and I do it with my own kids now, my twins.
You learn.
My twins are my do-over, by the way. They're my
Yeah.
do-over of what I did wrong in the beginning. And so it's like when they get a C or a B because they want A's, I don't punish them. Because a C or a B does not mean you're a good kid or a bad kid. It means that what is it that you didn't understand? Now, my kids have dyslexia and ADHD. So for me, I just ask them, I'm like, what does that feel like to you? Does it feel good? And my son says, well, no, I don't like the way the C feels. I'm like, well, what would feel good? He's like, I think maybe even a B would feel good. I said, great. So what has to happen to get a B? Is there something you don't understand? Can I support you on it so you can understand so you can get the B? The other thing I do is he's 10. I make him take ownership. They're twins. And I say, you need to go to the teacher. You need to ask her what it is that you need to do to get a better grade because it's your grade. I don't care what grade you get because it's yours. You need to take ownership. So not only is it not teaching them that you're a bad kid if you don't make the grade that I want, it's what grade do you want? What do grades mean to you? And like you said, he's only 10. So I'm not into comparing.
Right.
His twin sister was, held back and he went forward. And people have asked me, like, but they're twins. What did you do? And I'm like, we set them up to win. She needed to be held back. He didn't. And you know what? People are like, well, how is it in the house? It's fine. They don't say anything to each other about it. It's just normal to them. And it's like you said, they're not even aware that they're on different playing levels because we don't treat them that way.
Beautifully said. Another thing in that book I remember now is there was a man who was the best bowler in the whole world. He only throws strikes. Okay, you can't beat him. You could tie him, but he always throws a strike. In bowling, for those who don't bowl, people don't bowl anymore. You roll a ball down, it hits the pins, and they all go down. You get strike. If 8 go down, then 2 are left. You don't get as many points. All right. So they say, why do you think you have this ability? And he said, I know why I have this ability. My dad had a bowling alley. So there was a value to bowling. That's one. Two is they didn't have gutters in those days. A modern bowling alley has gutters. So if your ball goes off to the side, it goes into the gutter and you failed. But they didn't have gutters. They didn't have machines. And so what happens is the machines will will reset all of the pins. So the father had to reset the pins. You knock them down, he put them back up. So what the father did is whenever the little boy was playing with his dad, the boy would roll the ball down, and if it went off to the side, the dad would move a pin. So he always got that little impact of getting some reward. You see, it's action and reaction instead of action and I failed. And I said that story because what you said, major importance, setting your children up to succeed, setting your children up to succeed. Such an important thing. I apply that to relationships for women to set their husbands up to succeed.
Well, I got that from, I'm sorry, but I got that from when your Mars and Venus collide. So when you came to our mastermind group and you spoke to us, I immediately got that book and I started listening to it. And I coach couples, in family settings. And I had my clients get that book too, because it's exactly that. Like, I was not setting my husband up to win.
Right.
And I didn't realize that.
And always to explore even a little tip. There's so many, but it's to explore what your partner said or did and see their intention to help or to love.
Yes.
The intention is everything. 100%. And when we don't understand each other, we don't realize that they're actually trying to do their best. Like a man who's telling you, and we have to learn with all children. Okay, remember estrogen, all young children particularly have high estrogen levels, male or female. And then girls will always have the higher estrogen, boys will have less. So an estrogen being, if they're wanting to talk about something, if they're upset about something, if there's some problem, they're in stress mode. You lower their stress mode by raising their estrogen up, by asking more questions rather than giving answers. And this is always the case with teenagers at the dinner table. I remember, my brothers would say something. My dad said, no, that's ridiculous. And this is the way you should look at it. And this is the way you should look at it. It's like he didn't mean to be. He's just trying to help the boys, but it's like he bullied them. It was always, well, that's not right, or you shouldn't do that, as opposed to create the space with boys or girls, but help me understand that better. Well, tell me more about that. What else? And with boys particularly, but with girls too, but particularly with boys, well, that really makes sense. I see your point of view. Well, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that. And another way, you're right about that. Always, even if you're going to tell them something else, which I recommend, speak less, but acknowledge more if you can. They have wisdom inside themselves. But and girls you do that with as well. But just to know, boys need testosterone. And whenever you say something to a boy, he was logical, he achieved his goal, he made sense, that bumps his testosterone up. For girls, they're going to need more estrogen. And estrogen, not that you can't bump up their testosterone, but estrogen is help me understand that better. And how did that feel? Boy, it's like, help me understand that better. Well, tell me why you think that. Thinking is more one side of the brain that's bigger on all men than their right side. It's called the anterior parietal lobe. The right side, for every woman born, there's no exceptions, every woman born, her right side is bigger than her left. Now, of course, she can think, but the right side is the feel. And of course, every boy, regardless, the left side is always bigger than the right. That means the thinking part, the analyzing part, the logical part is bigger than the right. Now, can he use the right side? Of course. But if he uses the right side without also using his left side, then he'll have negative emotions. So this is where boys, when they're having emotional upsets, if they're teenagers or whatever, don't ask them how they feel. Don't ask them how they feel. They're kind of like, I don't know how I feel.
Right.
A little girl say, what do you feel? What's going on? And if she doesn't say anything, you say, well, are you frustrated about that? Are you disappointed that you wanted this and that? You sort of give them a story that you know is going on in their life that would point out to them, yeah, I guess I am frustrated. Or no, I'm not. I'm mad about it. Then you go, okay, you're mad about it. Let's talk about that. Very important to help girls have this a doorway through
Mm,
the negative emotions. And most men go, well, if I don't tell her the solution, why she's overreacting or what she should do differently, she's not going to feel better. No, you hear the emotions, that's going to raise her estrogen hormone levels so that her stress goes down. And then life's good again. Life's good again. She didn't have to repress that. The boy, on the other hand, you want him to analyze more. Like, and here's the key with boys: when you see they're pouting or they're quiet or not talking, give them some space. Don't get them talking right away. They can have their space. They need that. They need this sort of distance, come back to themselves, and then say, "What's going on? What's going on? What
mhm.
happened? How did that go when you did this?" And this is where you have to know, as a parent, to be a part of their life, to know what their challenges are, because they're not going to tell you. Many
Right.
children don't. It's just all the parents, when I had the kids growing up, they all called me up to find out what was going on, because my kids would tell me, because I was involved, and then I could ask questions, pointed questions, where you had that test with so and so, or you had that guy that said that. How did it go today? You have to ask questions that you don't just say, how was your day? You can say, you say, well, when this happened, what did you think? For boys, what did you
Right.
think? What did you do? What do you think is wrong with that? He hit me. Why do you think he hit you? What did you think you should do? What were your options to do it? Put it more in objective terms for boys. It's easier for them to talk and connect with you. And what we have
Mhm.
to recognize is that, we have so much violence today. We have so much imbalance, so much confusion and everything. The reason that all started, and I'm going to give you the reason, but I'm not saying that we should eliminate the reason. We should just adapt to it. The reason is we send our kids 8 hours away from us. This is where in Peru, Chile had no education for kids. They just learned from their parents. And there was no dysfunction, violence with all the kids. And, teenagers, violence, stealing, all this corrupt behavior. They didn't have that. As soon as they started sending their kids to school, separating from their parents, they were no longer connected to their parents. Then all of this dysfunction and addiction and violence and promiscuity all started because they were disconnecting from their parents. So if we're going to put our children in the hands of other people, we lose connection with them. But we can restore connection by having communication. Unknown caller. By having communication with the kids when they come home. See, that's the whole thing. We have to have communication. The family meal is so, so important, where children have a chance, where parents, I'm sure you have lots of
To
different
connect.
topics. How was your day? What are your wins? What are 3 things you're grateful for? Have these little rituals that you do with your family. And what were your challenges today? What was frustrating for you today? You got to find the words that
Yeah,
work for your kids. Frustration is a really easy one.
it
Also,
is.
what you're grateful for, what you learned today. We went through all these different things to create conversation.
Well, it's interesting because, like, that's one of the things that I teach my parents too now, because when I had my boys, it would be, "How was your day?" They said, "Good." I'm like, "Oh, okay, thank God. What do you want for dinner?" That, like, everything's going good. I'm a single mom. I'm working so many jobs and everything's good. And now I tell parents, I'm like, when they say good, because that's the normal, "How was your day?" Good. What
Yeah,
was good about it? What was good about it? And then also, like, the question that you asked, it's exactly like, did you have any challenges I can support you on? It's showing your kids that you're there to support them, and it's so important when you're having those conversations. So, one other thing I wanted to talk about,
another phrase that's really good, whether boy or girl, is how did you do that?
oh yeah, how'd you do that?
Amazing phrase. How did you
Yeah.
like you're like, how did you do that? And then it gets them to like, oh, I've done something good. Mom wants to know, dad wants to know, how did you
They're
do it?
interested, right? The parents are actually interested in what they're doing. And
Yes, yes. And,
um,
and they get a chance to speak out what they're
correct,
doing. But it has
right.
to be, and it gets cut so fast as soon as dad or mom tells them, shouldn't feel that way. You should have done this. This is what you should do. And even when they ask you, what if you stop giving advice to your kids, they'll start, what should I do? You don't give advice really unless they're asking you, and then they'll hear it. And every
Right.
parent knows, you feel it when you're giving a lecture to your kid and you can feel they're not hearing you. Stop. Try to find a question. Well, what were you thinking when that happened? Or help me understand. Even better is help me understand what you're thinking on that one.
Well, like some of
We'll
the
get some
like the
advice.
when you're talking about boys and girls, like I coach a lot of teenage boys, I coach a lot of teenage girls. And what I noticed is it's like what you said, and it made sense now. Because with the girls, I'm like, so what did that mean to you? How did that make you feel? And with the boys, I align with them. I'm like, oh, I could see that. I definitely understand why you did that. I align with them, and that empowers them. And then they tell me more. I was going to mention this that,
The phrase is there with boys again. Well, that makes sense to me.
right.
Well, that was a good idea. Well, I never thought of that. Well, that's very
It
interesting. You see, these
empowers
are
them.
things that they say, oh, I can talk more and nobody's going to shoot me down. Nobody's going to make me down. And I
Right.
just want to say it again because it's my own experience. My mother, she's a wise woman. Okay. She's a very smart lady, but she'd ask me questions because I'm more spiritual. I have these philosophies of the universe and people when I was a kid. And Mom, I think this is going on. And she's amazing. She would never say, oh, I already know that. That was a very key thing,
Yes.
how we shut our kids down. Well, of course, everybody knows that. Well, I already know that. You just put
Tell me
your own
more.
stuff to the side and just admire your child for coming up with whatever they're coming up with.
Right.
Their little genius showing up here or there.
One of the things that I learned from Dr. Amen when I was doing his courses is, especially with the frontal lobe, we talked about that, like where the frontal lobe doesn't, complete until their child's 28. And he says that, and this is so pivotal, that is why we need to be the frontal lobes for our teenagers, because they
Yes,
think they have
yes.
all the answers. We have to be that for them and give it to them. But if we use the strategies you're talking about with the nurturing to rise this estrogen in our daughters, the testosterone in our boys, we can align better with them to allow them again to have that open, safe, and trusting space. One of the things I say on my show every time is, number one, this is our boot camp from birth to 18. This is our boot camp. How are we going to raise our children to be happy, healthy, independent adults when they turn 18? What does adulting look like to them? And, with that, I always say, be curious, not critical. Be curious, not critical. Ask more questions than tell them what to do. One of my mentors, Joseph McClendon, always says, if I tell you, you might believe me, but if you tell me, you're going to believe me or believe yourself, right? And so it's getting your kids to tell you versus you tell them. So it really aligns with your message. But I did have a question. You had said something, and this is about a personal question now about my daughter. So you said, well, normally if one of your children is more like you, you're more likely to maybe favor them or not. What I find out, because my daughter is like me and my twin son is like my husband, I am probably harder on my daughter because I see all the things that I did that did not serve me as I got older. So it's almost like I'm trying to correct those in her now. And, so it's almost the opposite of what you said. I think I'm more
Well, in
easier
some
on my
cases,
son.
you gave an example of why it would be the opposite in that case. If you're if you're seeing the child behave in ways that you don't love yourself for, then you'll project onto them that they should be punished for
Mm,
that because you're punishing yourself. And that's
interesting.
another phenomenon. Deeper conscious people will do that. Okay, you have a depth. You're in touch with what Freud called projection. Okay, if you feel guilty about something, then you'll make somebody else feel guilty about something you feel guilty about. It's more judgmentalness comes out. Judgmentalness comes out from projection, and not everybody they have other they
Well,
just say
I'm
what
trying to save her. I think I'm trying to save her because I would always get in trouble for talking too much. And so when she talks a lot, I'm like, you're talking like why are we talking so much? It's
it's
because
putting your
I don't want her to be hurt like I was hurt by that.
your fear based upon you still judging yourself for that as opposed to loving her. And part of the whole dynamic, if a child does talk too much, okay, you're afraid it pushes your buttons, and now you've got to change her, protect her, whatever it is. All punishing of children is we're trying to protect them. Okay, all
The judgment that we
the
feel as
judgment
parents.
comes. Yeah, so that's your issue. But what you can do is recognize this is my issue. So what can I do to help her so that she doesn't talk too much? And there is a solution to that. When girls talk too much, they're getting dopamine out of talking too much. Okay, there's it's they're getting something out of it. So what
Right.
you want to do is you short circuit that when you have questions that validate what their emotions are. Now, nobody teaches this. I've seen this to work over and over and over because I got women coming into me. I mean, I used to be so exhausted as a therapist because women they pay you money. You just got to listen to whatever they say. And it's so boring.
We
It
like
just
to
goes
vent.
on and on. It doesn't go anywhere. So in my book and on all of my books, one of the processes I do is how to validate emotions. So when she says something, you have to interrupt with a validating, reassuring statement. Like, that must be so disappointing. Do you feel this and this and this? Or that must be so frustrating. And do you feel this and this? And are you angry about that? Are you sad about that? You bring it an awareness to them. This is emotional intelligence, being able to be aware that there's, and if she's talking a lot, usually there's something she's afraid of. Okay. So she's talking
Mm,
about something and you basically say something along the line, well, that must have been a difficult situation. Are you afraid of that happening again? And in the beginning, they'll say, no, I'm not. I said, oh, what do you feel? You always take a, oh, that's not what I feel. Some children have obstinance and they, whatever you say, they feel, no, I feel this. And you go, oh, good. Tell me about that. Has to be a huge flexibility where you're not attached to being right, but you're making the attempt to provide a reassurance in terms of validating what's underneath the stories they're telling. So
right.
you just have to interrupt. You just have to get in there and interrupt
I
with a
love it.
valid, not interrupting shouldn't feel that way, but interruption is a validation. Well, that
Foundation.
must feel so frustrating. And what were
Right.
you really wanting? That's another one. Just divert their attention to what were you wanting and what do you think you need at that time? So you divert their attention to wants, needs, tell them, oh, so you don't like that at all, do you? So that's if they're sort of running on about things. But if they're running on about positive things, kind of that useless conversation, you listen for a while and you hear the story and you realize what's a little bit under it is something, well, that must be difficult when you have to keep going on like that. Not going on like that, but they're talking about something. You want to identify something validating the emotion, or that must have made you feel really happy. Aren't you grateful that that happened? Identification of emotion. I mean, I remember teaching my kids, I said, you must be so disappointed. And she go, yes, Daddy, I am disappointed. I taught them those words. And so then I said, and that must make you sad. Yes, I'm sad. And then they cry because you gave
Right.
them an awareness of an added language to the emotion. And so I teach that in that book as well. It's an art, there's a lot more to say on it, but I sort of have to finish up now. But I want to finish real quickly so people get a sense of where I'm coming from. It's not just don't compare your children. That's the first message. The second message, it's okay to want more.
Nice.
Many children don't have permission to want more because you should be grateful for what you have. I can't buy you those shoes, as opposed to I understand you want to get new shoes or you want that bicycle. That would probably feel really great. They say, yeah. And they think they're going to get it. We just can't afford it now, but that's okay. One day we'll probably be able to do it. Or maybe one day you'll have a job and you'll get it yourself. But you come from a place of, it doesn't make me feel bad that I can't give you what you want. Because then a
Right.
child gets the message that if I have my own wants, my parents are going to feel bad, or they're going to make me feel bad for being greedy and wanting more. Of course, when the kid takes too much of the cake, you don't make them feel bad for wanting more. You just say, now listen, we're a family here. We have to share. And of course, you want the whole thing or you want 3 pieces. That's okay. I like the one thing, but we're a family. We have to cooperate and think about other people too. Never shaming a child for wanting more. So once you give a child permission to want more, they're going to want more. Then they're not going to get it. And now they're going to have emotions, negative emotions. So the next message, it's okay to have negative emotions, but you can't control everything. Okay, so negative emotions can quickly be dispelled if parents understand just holding that, be that prefrontal cortex for them that you talked about. You're the safe zone. And I understand right now you're wanting this and you're not getting that. So that must be so frustrating, or it must make you angry. Those kids are getting ice cream and you're not. And they go, yeah. And then they'll calm for a moment because they think, oh, now you hear me. Because they
It's
don't know.
validation.
And
It's
so
that validation.
then, but then I said, but I'm not going to get you ice cream. We don't have ice cream every day. And then you mean I'm not going to get my ice cream? They'll start to cry. I said, I know you feel sad. Of course you feel sad. They're having fun and you're not having fun. And certainly it's so disappointing. Why can't we have ice cream all the time? But we don't have ice cream all the time. They don't have ice cream all the time, but this day they're getting it. We're going to have it next weekend. We're going to have a little party at the house. You can have ice cream then. And then she says, no, 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 we're never going to have ice cream. That's the, because she now went to a deeper level of emotion. And I just say, I know you're afraid. You're afraid we're never going to have ice cream again.
Right.
That.
Right.
That seems so unfair. She says, yes, we're never going to have it. And so I understand you're afraid. And I promise you, we're going to be able to do this. So you solve the problem at that, whatever it is, and you make a promise that you keep. And the child will then go, okay, you promise? I say, yes. Can I get vanilla? I say, absolutely. So then they're done.
Right.
What you did is what I do professionally for people about all their problems is helping them learn how to explore their emotions, feel heard, and feel then better without having the outer world to change. Just think, if you could be happy, and when things make you unhappy, you could process your unhappy feelings, let them go, and come back to happy, loving feelings, and then it solved the problem. But you do it from a place of, I'm not pushing against, I'm for doing something new, creating a solution. So emotions, you have to learn how to emotionally process your kids. Because if you say it's okay to want more, all negative emotions come from people who want more and they don't
More,
get
right?
it.
Right.
They're always going to want more. Okay? You have to keep processing their emotions, back down, hearing them, feeling empathy for them. And so those are three of the messages. That's all we can cover today because I have to run on. We had some
Yes.
technical
No,
difficulties.
John, this has been such a treat. You've given us so much information. And I love how, again, this aligns with all the messages that I bring to my show, Redefine Parenting. And for my listeners, this is how you redefine it. You open your mind to understanding new things and being able to be there for what your kids need you to be there for, not what you think you need to be there for. Allow them to guide you in what they really want and need. Uh,
Absolutely. So beautifully said. I have to say one other thing because you mentioned a child with ADD. Now, what causes ADD? A whole bunch of that. I wrote a whole book on it, Staying Focused in a Hyper World, Healing ADD and Memory and Brain Function. Amazing book. And if I could summarize everything down to, I mean, there's a lot more to it, but it shows up differently in different kids. But the key with this, there is a mineral in your brain that regulates all of the dopamine and the serotonin production and the GABA production. It's a little tiny mineral. And when you eat sugar, and all these kids do, or when they have trauma, which is intensity. I say sugar is intense pleasure. Okay. It can be intense fear or any kind of intensity, depletes the brain of this mineral. Highly controversial. It's called lithium. Now, lithium, people should go on YouTube. If you're interested in really helping your child, if they have any of these ADD symptoms, go online to find a Google search for me explaining lithium orotate, John Gray. And I will explain to you why every doctor is wrong. I've been promoting this for 25 years. They used to have me on Wikipedia as a promoter of lithium orotate. And then they thought it would dissuade people from using it. If you go to your doctor, they don't know anything about it. All they know is what they learned in medical school, which is the source of healing depression in people and anxiety in people. They used to use lithium carbonate, and they use 500 times the dose. 500. Of course, there's going to be side effects. So if you look online, oh, lithium, side effects, and now take the drugs. No, come back to the most natural thing there is. It's a mineral that gets depleted when you're having addictive tendencies. And all you need is a tiny little bit, 4.5 milligrams a day. That's a tiny, tiny bit bonded to uric acid, which delivers it into the brain. Psychiatrists, the medical institution, gives you 500 times the dose. And of course, there's side effects. It's just salt. It's a particular kind of salt.
Thank you so much, John. I know that there's we got to get going. There's so much information. If you are finding value in the conversation here on our show, please join our Redefine Parenting group on Facebook for even more tips and conversation. Do someone you know a favor and share my group with them as well, so they too can hear what they need in order for them to feel supported in their parenting journey. This show can also be heard on Spanglish Radio Network. Please check out www.spanglishworld.ca for all your news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it.